page, the top half is really some of the more critical data points that we talk about, things like, just that our pipes and mechanical systems are all 46, maybe even 47 years old. So those are definitely past their life expectancy. We just have a lot of people in the building every day and not enough space for them, so a lot of those facts speak to that. And then below that is really some of the things we know that the new building should do. After doing research and focus groups with students and staff and faculty over the past few years, this is kind of what we distilled down. It's some exciting things. We have some cool opportunities ahead of us. And actually, the slideshow here has some images from other universities as well as like Google headquarters and similar spaces that speak to the kind of space we want to have to give you an idea of some of the cool things we could do.
And in those images, we actually had students look at them and help kind of pick them in December to best kind of articulate what we're trying to put in there.
What did you, from the students' point of view, like pie in the sky, like what did they ask for? Like I know that can be.
Like some of the more outlandish.
They're
requests.
creative, yeah. What do they want?
The one I've heard over and over again are nap pods. I don't know if that'll happen, but
Yeah.
Something on the rooftop,
Yeah.
like Clove has.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, grad students would love to have a pub
Yes.
somewhere they can buy
Yeah.
alcohol in the student center.
That would maybe be no undergrads allowed if they had their
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I think the funniest one I got was, can we have 2 Chick-fil-A's and have like signs with like wait times in front of each of them so you know which one you can go to? Yeah.
We've had some more outlandish and obviously very Georgia Techy suggestions, like a TARDIS landing site I got the other day for Doctor Who fans. So some of those more fun sci-fi related things, but also our students are savvy and understand they need more meeting space, more event space, certainly more student organization support space. For the most part, they'd all love to see some more food options as well.
One of the things that came up yesterday was more space for dance groups. So I think just kind of the specific needs of groups continues to come up in terms of what student orgs need. And we have a bunch of dance groups that are, I think they often engage students that aren't in some of the more, I think, mainstream student orgs. And I think the same is just true in terms of requests that we see as needs for some of our religious groups that may not have space, and then some of those groups that aren't in the religious or the religious majority in terms of what's represented here in the U.S. So what are their needs? They may not ever have an on-campus space that would look like and out of the student center space. So what would they need to be able to function? So.
Are there plans to add another auditorium-like space that can seat maybe more than we have at Clough, which is 300?
So, yeah, even back in a study that we did in 2005, 2 of the key things that were found that we needed was a space like this, but that had more like 400 to 500 seats, and also larger ballroom space. The idea is that you have 1,100 seats in the first center. If there's a major group that's on campus or we're doing a major event, does that group then need to break out to kind of a ballroom space where they can have a meal together? So can we accommodate 1,000 people, 1,100 people in a ballroom space for a banquet? Can we then break that group out into kind of breakout rooms and accommodate all 1,100 people? So there are some logical numbers that we're trying to hit, and that 1,000 to 1,100 number is kind of in our mind. Right now our ballroom can accommodate 450 for a banquet, so we fall far short of that. And I think most feedback that we've heard, people are saying that we need more ballroom space, not a bigger ballroom instead of what we have, but multiple ballrooms.
I think that would definitely be a good idea for the staff side, to give us another option other than having to go to the GLC or the hotel. It would give for some units, depending on their activities, a better price point to work with than what they charge for their space and the food options. But of course, the student center is primarily for students and their needs. Anything that staff or faculty would use the space for would just fit in with whatever is there for the students. But what are the thoughts around having faculty and staff use that space? For Clough, if you're not an academic unit, you can't reserve anything there. So that's a whole building that you don't have access to. So how is it going to be set up for the student center or the new student center?
A lot of our discussions, even when we started last spring with workshop, is really to kind of make this a campus center. So yes, it's for students, but we also want the rest of the faculty and staff to enjoy it and come here as well. So we have thought about that whenever we put it in here. I know for lots of your offices you're using it, but what else would you guys want? More lounge space, more places to eat, so you can actually come take that break from work while you can do that. So we are keeping that in mind. We want this to be a place that the whole community is using. So with more space and bigger, we're going to hopefully be able to accomplish that better.
And that's one of the roles that we know the new building should play that you have on your sheet, is that it should serve the whole community, which does include, you know, community members, alumni, families, grad students, yeah.
I think something that could be helpful are smaller meeting rooms.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't necessarily need the space for 20 people, you know, and it's a more intimate meeting for 3 or 4 people, I think that could be very helpful for staff as well as students.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a matter of just that what we have now is serving us. It's just more of that, because it's already very helpful. I mean, the Juniper room is perfect for a smaller group, but then we have other conference rooms, board rooms in the student center, and then we have also the ballroom and the theater and now the Peachtree room as more options for us. It's just more.
We just need
There's
more.
so
We
many
need more
things.
of what we
Yeah.
have. Just
You know, I
yeah.
think what we're doing already is really great. It's just building on that, which is something I know that you all have recognized. But so during the project phase, sorry, I'm going over everything. During the project phase, is that more of when like the floor plans and things will be discussed, or have you all already had sort of like a vision for that in terms of building and space needed? And I'm just curious I was curious about what you guys were going to do in the interim, probably similar to the library with, like, I guess moving in phases, right? Closing one down and then doing that, and then, but, so that was interesting to think about. But in addition to that, just, I guess, how will it look within where it is now? Is it gonna spread out wider, or I guess, you guys don't have a whole lot to work with in terms of this space and going up. Just curious.
So to the first question about the program, we have a very high-level program, so it just says, for example, we need X amount of square feet for dining and X amount of square feet for meeting space. It doesn't break down into how many meeting spaces that is, or how many people it needs to seat, or things like that. So those are things that once we get project approval and get into the actual design
Yeah,
phase, that we'll
okay.
start to figure those out better. And then your second question was about what it's going to look like, and that's probably the hardest one for us to answer. What we do know is that the parking deck will remain a parking deck, so we're not going to tear that down and build that direction. And we know that we want to kind of refocus the student center toward tech green. So right now, you know, it doesn't have a lot of windows. You just have very little snapshots out toward tech green, but we really want to make that the focus, kind of the way Clough focuses toward tech green as well. So it could go up, it could go out toward, you know, the edges of the green. Y'all have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just have kind of goals that we want in the building, and we have 6 of them. I think those are on the sheet, but we know that we want to make sure every time we make a decision, we're looking at those, and so that is included, which is for the staff to activate Tech Green, for the entire community, student organization. So all of that we are keeping in mind. So yeah, no, we don't know any of the details yet, but we have overall
Well, it's
goals.
very broad.
Yes.
thought.
Yep.
And we do anticipate it being a phased project still, right?
Yeah.
You know, I just want to add that you can be really helpful there, because one of the things that we're doing now and have been doing for many years is just going to other schools and looking at their spaces and looking at their ballroom spaces. And you know, if you see a space somewhere else on campus or on another campus and you think it's a great space, take a picture of it and zip it to us and put a little note. Why was it a good space, in terms of maybe it's the furniture in a room that you just thought was really flexible and functional, that you think would be beneficial for us to consider. And so there's a tremendous amount of investigation and research that needs to happen before we can make sure we design those ideal spaces for the campus. And I hate to say this, but I think UGA probably has the ideal ballroom. The Tate Center ballroom is just amazing. I mean, if we could just, you know,
What is it about it? Like, I've never been there.
it's the size, it's the AV equipment, it's subdividable into 9 spaces. You can have sound isolated spaces, not just kind of subdivided spaces.
Yeah.
And just really well designed. Yeah, every segment of the ballroom has its own projection system and own controls, lighting controls. So it's kind of ultimate flexibility. But then we'll dig in a little bit deeper as we get closer to budget limitations and say, well, we can't afford all that, but, you know, we'll go talk to them and say, well, which aspects of the design were the most important that you would absolutely retain if you had to do it all over again, and try to go from there.
I will say that Tate is not comparable to us in terms of our food options. I know that because my sister goes there.
Yeah.
So I know from experience.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah, their food's across the street at Bolton Dining Hall, so they really don't do much food.
And I mean,
at
going
Tate's.
downtown, even if I was a student there, I would hate to have to do that. And that's where they have to go to get the food. So for sure, you know, she loves the students there. Coming here and having all of her options. So that's something too. I mean, because Tate is a huge facility, but they don't, there are a few aspects of things that we offer that are, that they can't even compare to what they offer. Barbaritos, sorry. But yes, I've seen the ballrooms, and I mean, they are serving a different kind of student body, and it's, the numbers are obviously still very different, but I mean, because of that flexibility, I mean, they have we have dance marathon in here, but when they have dance marathon, which is 24 hours, and it's like thousands of students, everyone knows it just, oh yeah, it'll happen at Tate, you know, because it can just require any amount that they would need. And we already serve our students in that way, but with the new facility too, it'll just give us more options. So yeah. So I'm trying to do our research.
Just how do you guys perceive like an interim? So as you're moving along from phases, like student organizations who don't have on-campus space being affected. So as we're trying to meet with students or have like for my organization, we have a weekly meeting and things like that. Like just curious, looking towards the future, how we need to be flexible and how we need to adapt and prepare for some of that. So just how do you see like student orgs, being affected by that transition?
No one wants to answer that question. So, you know, the reality is anytime you tackle a major project like this that impacts so many people's daily lives, it's going to be painful. It's a painful process for the construction to occur because we'll lose spaces before we gain new spaces. And we just have to carefully kind of set that up so we minimize the impact. Yes, a lot of the schools that I talk to who have renovated buildings that are from this era, so kind of 1970s, you know, college unions, they said if they had to do it all over again, they would just close the entire place all at once, not phase it over 3 or 4 years, and just, you know, only feel the pain for 2 years instead of 4. And that's something we have to consider. It also costs more to extend the project over a longer duration, so it might be beneficial to the finances of the project to make it happen all at once. But it's tougher for the campus. We would work very hard to make sure that we could relocate events to similar venues either on or near campus. But yeah, that's a very painful subject.
I can't speak to Georgia Tech, and I think we're probably too early to give the specifics of some of the things that you're asking about. I know that you're in our office space a lot, and I'm used both meeting space and just kind of working space. But this is in my third institution, and I think at both previous ones we've done the same thing, and somehow I end up on the front end and not just getting to walk into a new student center, but which would be awesome. Maybe the next one I can just walk into a new student center. But at the first, you know, I think it is painful. But in all those things, I think there's often things that we learn about what we need and about the way that we work with student groups that's insightful. The first time we did that, I was at the university at Morehead State University, and we ended up working out of the basement of a residence hall in an open meeting space, and we were all forced to have open offices, which in some ways was really helpful because we moved back into a space that had more open office space. So I think. I know that this staff is thinking really critically about what it could look like. What if our space is gone? Where do we go? And I think the thing to trust is it will be taken care of, and if it hurts a little bit, we're going to walk back into something that's really great and exciting. So
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking about that now and kind of thinking it through. At my last institution, we did the same thing. We are building a new student center and the org space, and I was working with clubs and organizations at the time, and we were we were in some kind of random building that they kind of placed, been able to kind of a swing space. But what I learned in the process is the students were very adaptable.
Mhm.
It was kind of the staff members, because obviously we're changing and we've been going to the same pattern, but the students were very open to it, and they kind of really made that space, and they were in there for two and a half years, and so they were able to kind of make it their own. So I think from our side, we're definitely going to kind of think through that process and minimize it, but there will be some pain, but hopefully we'll be able to communicate that and, you know, kind of make that transition as easy as possible for a little bit of time.
Would there, along those same lines, be plans in the meantime to add more seating, more tables to what's here? Like, are there opportunities to do that?
I mean, we are continuing to try to see how more. So you might have noticed the outdoor space that was added up on the second floor.
Yeah.
We're looking at some other outside the subway deck. We've kind of changed that space right there, right at this building, to kind of make it a pilot space. Not necessarily new seating, but
Yeah.
kind of different seating,
Mhm.
just to kind of continue to update it and really kind of continue to let the community know
Yeah.
what can kind of happen in the new space. So we are always trying to figure out how to kind of get more and how we can kind of have more seats and stuff.
But a lot of that is focused on outdoor space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
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 So how many staff are going to be relocated, through the process?
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
we don't really know that right now. I don't know, maybe Rich has another answer, but probably until we kind of get more into design and we know what's going to be in the building and the process and that more timeline, I don't think we know yet.
Yeah, just to throw it out there, some schools have built temporary structures. So I don't know if any of you were around during the Olympics, but there was an 80,000 square foot tent constructed as the main dining operation for the athletes, coaches, and trainers. And that kind of tensile structure could be constructed. It had a subfloor, carpeted, air-conditioned, lights. I went to a similar facility at Tulane University when they were doing a student center renovation, and it was a 2-story food court in a tent structure. And they operated out of that structure for a little bit over 2 years. It survived Hurricane Katrina.
Probably better than some buildings.
And that is an option, so we may consider, constructing temporary facilities somewhere so that we can take more elements offline at the same time. What I get concerned about in terms of staffing is if you make it too difficult, you might actually lose good staff.
Yeah.
Because if they're suffering through 3 or 4 moves over a 3 or 4 year time period, and we only hire the best that we can find, so these are people who are marketable to other schools, and they just think, I don't want that hassle. You might, Jerome's thinking, it's like, I've been through this 2 other times. But, and it does become a hassle for the staff who come here each and every day. I also think it's really troublesome to think that we could have an entire generation of students who might not have a student center if it's a 4-year project. That's an entire generation of students who just don't even have access to the services and the facilities that we offer. And that's difficult to think about, too.
Well, what are there things right now that you just know do not work? Like, are there specifics that just aren't okay here? Like, what are those things that we know for sure we won't see anymore, or that will be improved? Like, are there things?
Maybe no kitchen above
That's what I was
the
gonna say.
bowling alleys?
Yes. No, so if you've been in tech rec, it leaks all the time, the kitchen is right above it.
Yes,
So
that's what it
we would
is.
hope that we would probably not do that or, really fix, but yes, there are leaks all the time, so that would be something we
Yeah.
would not wanna do again.
Maybe some windows would be nice.
Yes.
We know we want some natural light.
Make it open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this building, especially this side of things especially, was the height of fashion in 1970 when it was built, which was a time when people didn't like natural light, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked a lot about outdoors, activating tech green, really open up and outside, do that part as well. Because we don't do that necessarily as well.
Yeah.
Changing the fact that you have 2 second floors that
Yes.
don't
Yes.
Oh, yes,
connect.
absolutely. Mhm.
With
Well, that's my
difficult
favorite part.
access
Is it?
Yeah. With the elevator here and then kind of in the back corner over there. Yes,
Yeah.
that would
Mm.
definitely would fix that as well.
generally speaking, the building right now has a reputation for just being, we talk about it being a very transactional place. Students come in, they get lunch, and then they leave, or they come in, drop off mail, and leave. It's not a space that allows for them to really, mix and be. So we want it to be more of a relational space. So that's definitely probably the biggest kind of focus change. Yes, this transactional does not work.
I think in new, really phenomenal student centers, you have that open space that doesn't seem to have any purpose, which ends up serving some of the best purposes. And I think that's what doesn't work in this building, is that when you see the mail line, that doesn't make you want to stick around. Like I don't want to hang out in this hallway, or so I think that's part of what'll come. While there's no promises being made, I expect there's going to be much more open space for just feeling as if you're in a place that doesn't feel like you have to sit on the floor to eat, or hang out in the mail line. I know that's been a topic of conversation.
Yeah, one thing we haven't talked too much, but one of our objectives is to really kind of make it a place to reset, refuel, restore. So when you have that open space in different areas to kind of sit and relax and take a break.
I get requests in Clough a lot for students that want a table, and a lot of the times they say, well, the weather's going to be bad on Tech Walkway. And I always say, well, the student center has opportunities. And they're like, oh, well, I can reach more people in Clough. Or, it's more open and, it's just easier there. I think it would be nice if there was not the equivalent to Tech Walkway on the inside, but a place where you could, kind of get that experience being inside. Not that I don't want them in Clough. It's just that, it doesn't really fit.
Well, it's different.
If you would see in Tate,
Like being
Covered
open.
outside
Yeah,
spaces.
Yeah, we
like
actually had a
open
student
space.
suggestion to have market stalls, like what you would have, like
Yeah.
Pike Place Market in
Uh-huh.
Seattle. And so
Uh-huh.
that Tech Walkway would still be active even when it's
Yeah.
raining, it would be all covered, but then also have some indoor
well, I
spaces.
wish we kind of have those little ones along the subway. That's what we have, those little inlets, and people sort of rent space temporarily, so it's just
Yeah,
big scale.
but they're like tucked here and there.
Yes.
Try to get past them.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want any cupcakes.
But I think what you're saying is it really is a matter of scale. I mean, Tech Walkway is 30 feet wide, 25 feet wide, and that just has a totally different feel than walking in between the crowds through Student Center Commons. And it's just hard to engage with people when they're kind of concerned about how they're going to get through the crowd. Yeah, I'll tell you just a quick funny story. For the 25th anniversary of the Student Center years ago, we interviewed the architect who designed the building, and he was a Georgia Tech alum. It was the very first project he had worked on after he graduated, and his first comment was, "Oh, the Student Center at Georgia Tech, I am so sorry." And he said that they really had a grandiose plan, but the budget got cut, and it wound up being just a very functional space. And I'll say that the Student Center is highly functional.
Yes.
We're able to do so much out of this building that many buildings can't accommodate. But yeah, I just thought it was hilarious that he apologized profusely. And I think the exterior of the building is just so uninviting. The building is not attractive. It's not a great place to walk up to. The sliding windows make the facade look like a computer punch card or a prison. But neither are really attractive.
At that time, he was only catering to 7,000 students.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not 40,000.
And they were very familiar with computer punch cards at the time.
Yeah, and that's why I think considering, this is just, y'all already know this, but to reiterate it and to speak for, I think, a lot of campus, considering that you were given the facility, because, well, I don't think any of y'all were here in the 70s when it was first built, so, that you guys have made such good use of it already. And considering the changes that you have made within the student center with your limitations, I think is already amazing. Walking into the facility, there's still parts of it that are very innovative in itself, and it still feels like Georgia Tech in how technological and just inviting for different groups. I think it's just, you guys don't have a lot to work with, and we recognize that you've already made do with a lot of it, and all the changes that have come to the Commons area already. I've only been here for 7 years, and it's already changed like 3 times because you guys recognize the need, and so this is like the bigger need, but we appreciate everything that you've done to facilitate it up to this far. So, and even that you're going through this endeavor for us, so thank you. But, yeah, that's
That's actually one of our favorite arguments for a new
Mhm.
building is that we have really one of the best staffs on campus, and to have such a high quality staff and imagine what we could do in a building as great as we are is really an exciting thing to think about, so.
Well, I mean, too, when you think about it, when we have visitors to campus, you know, they might not necessarily go to an academic building. You know, if they're going to want something to eat, they're going to want to just hang out. So where do you go? And it's the student center. So it should be where we can really showcase what we are and who we are.
Well, and I think that's why, I think that you will have, maybe not directly, but you, more than a lot of other people, will have a lot of ideas for something like this. Even though you weren't in the project phase for Clough, I feel like this is very similar to how it would have been for creating Clough, because we were, how many students were we accommodating, what kind of spaces did we need, all the windows facing Tech Green. It's like sort of like a goal for the student center to be similar to a building like that, obviously not serving in the same way, but so.
We've kind
I
of
think
talked.
it'll be very helpful, so.
Yeah, we talked about Clough almost the academic hub, and what students are going to be the social hub.
Exactly.
They're all around the same,
Right
Tech
here.
Green, all the same
Yeah.
area.
Is that green space out here where the big tree is it off limits?
Oh, the triangle between the transit hub. No.
It's not reservable for events, if that's what you mean. I wouldn't say it's off limits.
No, I mean off limits to expand.
Are you gonna cut the tree down?
Oh.
You mean build
yeah.
over the top of the
We've
trees,
been asked
or-
not to.
Right.
I don't think we're gonna touch the trees.
Yeah, we're not going to mess with those trees. The students even said that during
Yeah.
some of our workshops. Don't mess with the tree.
Oh, the
Yeah.
tree.
The tree.
So the older master plan actually showed a new grand entrance to the campus right there, kind of near the trees, so that when you arrived at Georgia Tech, that was your first view. You would kind of look through the trees, see Tech Green, and the activity on Tech Walkway. I think it's sacred.
Those are some really old trees.
Yeah.
Well, they cut down a lot of trees for Harrison Square, so
Yeah.
it would be nice if they kept those trees. I would support that, because my office is in A French, so we had a direct view of when all the trees were getting cut down, and it was so sad. I mean, I love Harrison Square, but, you know, we really appreciate the money that they gave for that, but it was really sad watching the trees, so I think it would be like extra sad if we saw those trees, so I support keeping the trees, especially that one tree. You take care of the Christmas one with that tree.
Kind of looking at some of the things that students have listed that they wanted on here, as far as like well, just to say too, this organization that I'm on staff with is a faith-based organization. And I've been on campus for about a year now, and right after I got on campus, I started hearing little rumors about like an interfaith space in whatever expansion project would happen with the student center or over at the Health and Wellness Center or something like that. So I've heard these rumors, and then looking through like what students want as far as a reflection and meditation space, place to bridge cultures, place to find one's niche, things like that. I know that there are some faith-based campus organizations that do have their own physical buildings and physical space on campus. Those are few and far between, even for like the majority culture faith here as well. And I certainly want to respect and prioritize there being a space for places for non-majority faith traditions as well. But I'm just kind of curious, to hear from you guys as far as your knowledge is with the future space and the future student center. Realizing that space is kind of, it is limited, but to your knowledge, I guess the question is, where is an interfaith type space on the list of priorities for the student center expansion project?
I mean, I think at this point, it's in the discussion. We know the students have talked about the meditation prayer. We hear that a lot. And we know that students, they reserve that space, and sometimes it's not available, and we've worked with student groups. And so, it's in discussion. We are fully aware that it's a need, so.
What would that look like? Because I think there's some questions like, what's an interfaith space? And what's that mean to you as, in your role? Because that is different maybe to some of the other religions that are represented.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation worth having with a lot of different people. So, I might have a particular perspective, but I would love for that to be a more collaborative discussion.
And one thing So kind of where we are, we haven't touched base too much on it, but right now we're getting the students. We went to referendum, students are gonna help fund 50% of this, and so we need your student body voice. So they're gonna vote March 9th through 16th on whether they agree and kind of they wanna move forward. After that, we're hoping great support, but after that, we're gonna start having kind of these discussions with the different groups, because we talked about, we want a graduate-specific space. We don't exactly know what that's gonna look like. We're talking about interfaith or with the organization space. And so we're gonna kind of be doing that research and have some focus groups and have conversations with staff, with students, to kind of see what that looks like. So then when we get to the next phase, we kind of have those ideas of what the campus look like.
And I'll
I would
respond just-
reiterate what Rich said,
Yeah.
that if you or folks you work with or even students are
Mhm.
out and about in other schools
Yeah.
or even other like office spaces or whatever that have a space that they think would work, send it our way. We'll be collecting ideas
Yeah.
and thoughts.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean, it's an interest of mine, I think, figuring out how do we accommodate these student groups that are, that may not, their needs may not be met. And I think it's always the challenge as to what's that look like. And the reason I ask is that more space might help your group, just having more larger spaces that are more accommodating, that have more technology, that could be set up as an auditorium space might help your group, whereas, the Muslim Student Association needs, sinks in the floor and a room to store shoes. So like when we talk about interfaith space, I think it's important for me to really engage with what the space is going to end like. Like, is more space going to meet the need? Or is it something different? Is there a specific need that would make the space functional?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, and I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say just my heart would be to see a place where different faith organizations can come together
Mhm.
and it to really be a united thing and not like, well, because the MSA needs sinks in the floor, they're going to be way over here, and we're
Right.
going to put all the Hillel folks over here, and then all the Christian folks over here. But I mean, I would like to see more of a collaborative, like
Sure.
Yep.
different.
Absolutely.
Along the lines with Club, how we had a number of units that were separated in different places on campus that came together to co-locate in Club. Is there any thought of other functional areas that students are saying we would love to see them move into this space, so they're all co-located with those functions that already exist in the current student center?
I think it's kind of the same answer as everything else. We've kind of had some discussions, but mostly we're just trying to get support, and then once we kind of talk about design. I really think at this point, anything, and we've heard from every office, anyone. So just kind of figuring out what best will be in here. I don't know if anyone has a better answer than that.
I can speak to what we would like, and I think having all of our student org support staff in the student center. So our Greek class staff are currently in the Smith Gall building. And then the flag building, is that Smith Gall?
Yes.
In the flag building. And our student publications staff are in that building with student pubs. But rec radio is part of student media. So I think for us, we all work together, and the trek down the second floor, up to the second floor and out and over, can change the way that we function and can even change process. So for us, having us all in one space would be really phenomenal. I think, imagine some of your really close colleagues working a 6-minute walk away, 10 if you meet somebody in the hallway. But yeah, so I think for us, we would love to see the other student org professional staff, which would be Greek life and student media, a little closer to us. Who knows if that can happen, but because that's what we also don't want to fill the student center with a bunch of staff spots. We want there to be more student space.
Yeah, we want to make sure we have the space for everything else.
You guys have said a couple times just that, like, you're in the process right now trying to gather support amongst the students. So what's your perception right now of how they're going to vote in March?
I feel like the undergrad, I think they're very supportive. They get it. I think how it's going to work with the fee. Right now, what we're saying is the fee will not exceed $85, and it won't start until they're using the building. So some of the questions that we're getting a lot from students is, well, why should I vote? I'm not going to be here. So we have a lot of students support, and so we're kind of helping get that message out. So I think undergrads are in support. Sometimes some of the grads are not as supportive because it's an additional fee. But we've been doing tabling a lot and getting a lot of feedback, and most people understand it. They might not be happy about the fee, but they really understand why we need to. And so it has been great. I'm hoping, what I keep telling them is we just really need to get their voice. We need them to vote. Whether it's yes or no, we need to hear the student voice. We think we need this, but we want to hear what their perspective is.
And then just the next question would be, how can we help?
Oh,
Email Carly.
many ways. Yes, actually, the back of that, yes, the more colorful sheet has a lot of different ways that you can get involved and help support the project. And that's everything from, bringing your office staff on our behind-the-scenes tours, which is illuminating, and is actually a pretty good time because we end on the roof, to being even one of our staff champions, and that would mean just a little bit of training and some other tools to help you be a good advocate and be able to push the message out to the students you work with. But really just having a conversation with students, making sure they've heard about it, pointing them towards the website where most of the information is.
Yeah, I mean, word of mouth is going to be really big, so if you work with students, even if it's just one, they're going to continue to kind of tell people. So just March 9th through 16th, they can be able to vote online.
And I think the
Questions
the
along
hard
the
thing
way.
for students is they're not voting on this is what we're getting. They're
Right.
voting on the permission to dream. So I would say like if you we can't dream, we can't start talking about these things that you want until we get a yes vote. I know for the groups that we advise, I advised the rec club, and I've kind of started this conversation now in their emails. They're like, vote because we want a bulletproof glass case in the student center for the rec. Will they get it? No, but they can't talk about it unless they vote yes. So I think just kind of starting that conversation, and the conversation that we just had, have that with your students, knowing that we may not get everything that we want, but we don't get anything if we don't get this yes vote.
And please send, if they have lots of questions, we've got several contact information, send them our way. We're glad to answer and
Well,
help
I'm
out.
just curious, what do the student fees go towards? So this is an additional one?
This is just a building fee.
Okay.
So I know they have other fees that help
Yeah.
with student activity. This is an
So
additional,
what is
just
the
a building
general
fee.
student fee right now? Is there one?
Activity fee is $123.
Okay.
But, there's also a campus rec fee, so the CRC construction project costs students $54 per semester. And we're trying to be really frugal.
Yeah.
So $54 for the CRC covered $24 million in debt. We're asking students to pay up to $85, which will cover $50 million in debt. So we think that, the cost of capital right now is good. So we're getting better interest rates.
Yeah.
And there are more students paying the fee now than started paying the fee for the CRC in 2000.
There's going to be more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even then, in 5 years. Well,
Slow down.
we have more facilities for classrooms, like Rich and I, from our task force.
Absolutely.
So, but yes.
Anything else? You have some good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
thank you.
participation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for putting this on.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're gonna have another one at the end of the month too.
But, can y'all tell us how they get their Christmas tree in the year? I just want to know.
Yeah.
What?
I want to
Get what?
What's the question?
the Christmas tree that was on the roof.
Say it again.
It was a group. Last year?
Oh, he's asking
Well, I mean,
about
how
it.
do they do it?
It was a drone. It was a powerful
Yeah.
drone. It was I'm kidding. Thank you very much.
Are you talking about the one that ended up on the roof? It was a group.